This week we start the Torah portion, the book, a new book in the Torah, the book of Bamidbar. It's named Bamidbar, the desert, where the Torah was given. And that's a whole discussion. Why was the Torah given in the desert? It's not befitting. It's not appropriate. When they left Egypt, firstly, Moshe should have taken them to a lot for a little R&R. After being in the desert, after being in prison for 210 years, instead, he took them to the desert. And the Torah was given in the desert, a place where only snakes and scorpions feel at home. And this becomes the name of the Torah portion and the name of the book. The whole book of Bamidbar happens in the desert, where the Jews were quarantined for 40 years. They were in isolation from the rest of the world. They were completely cut off from the rest of the world. There was no work. There was no business. Everything they needed, was given to them on a silver platter. They had the manna from heaven, the water from the rock, and it was all miraculous. So what was the purpose of being in a midbar, in a desert? And why for 40 years? Okay, they were punished after the sin of the spies, but still, the punishment could have been, you're not going to enter into the promised land. But they could have wandered in civilization and somewhere else. Why in a desert? There had to be some constructive purpose in the desert. So what's the positive aspect of being in the desert? What's the positive aspect of being quarantined, isolated? It's everything in life has to be an opportunity. Not just a necessary, we have no choice, but there also has to be something positive in the midbar. So why the Torah was given in the midbar? So there are many reasons given. One of them is that just like the desert is a free-for-all, so the Torah is also, it's ownerless. Anyone can come and claim it. Who rises to the top? Whoever takes the Torah the most seriously. If you apply yourself and the one who's deeper, who's more genuine, who's more sincere, who toils away, who invests, who puts in the effort, no one can claim the Torah belongs to me. No one has a right to the Torah. This poorest Jew, the simplest Jew, if he works his head off and works in the Torah, he could become a great Torah rabbi. As many of the Torah rabbis did not have any great ancestry. Rabbi Akiva was a son of converts. Rabbi Meir was a son of converts. Onkelos himself was a convert. No one has a claim to the Torah. It's just like in the desert. It's a free-for-all. It's open to everyone. But another reason why the Torah was given in the desert, because just like the desert, the Jewish people transformed the desert into an oasis. It was miraculous. They turned it into a place which is uncivilized, a desert which is uncivilized. It's not fit for human habituation. And here the Jews settled the desert. And that's really the purpose of the Torah. The purpose of the Torah is, without the Torah, the world is uncivilized. The world is like a desert. And comes along the Torah and civilizes the desert. At the snakes and the scorpions and all these harmful creatures, the cloud of glory annihilated all these harmful creatures, and instead trees grew, blossomed. It was like an oasis, a Garden of Eden, which the Jews created in this setting. So even though the world inherently is like a desert, a place where only snakes and scorpions can feel at home, spiritually speaking, and a Jew comes along with the power of the Torah, with the power of the tablets and the ark and the clouds and the power of Hashem, we come into this world and we change the world and we civilize it. Okay, so there again, we're emphasizing the negative aspect of the desert. Despite the fact that the desert is so negative, we're able to change and to transform the desert. But is there a positive aspect of the desert? What's a positive lesson that we could learn from being in the desert, and why the Jewish people had to spend 40 years in the desert, and this was a preparation for them to enter into the promised land.
I'm going to say, can I say something, Rabbi?
Yes.
So the punishment for the spies who didn't keep their faith in Hashem was the desert. And the desert is a place where you're solely dependent on Hashem. So I would say that maybe was to help the people with their faith in Hashem.
Okay.
I keep thinking about the Tower of Babel. When we all had the same language, right? Isn't that the story? And then suddenly we all didn't have the same language. So that in some ways separated us. And through that separation, we weren't getting together and doing bad things together. We now had a chance to kind of separate and be better somehow. And it reminds me a little bit of that. I don't know why, but that's what I've been thinking about. That was a form of separation. It was our language separated us. And
you're saying it was a form of quarantining, of separating everyone. Okay. Well, there is something that's very positive in the desert, which is it's a place where there are no distractions. And, the key ingredient, why is it that the more things change, the more we stay the same? Why is it that it's so difficult to make any real progress in life, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, to advance, to make a change in our behavior? What's the missing ingredient? Because knowledge, awareness, we have a lot of knowledge. We know a lot. We know more than probably any other generation in human history. We just have the information at our fingertips. You just look up at Google, you have everything at your fingertip. We know so much. Intelligence is all around us. Today, everything is intelligent. There's intelligence embedded in everything. So all that information in the schools, we learn the best information. And yet, while society is technologically advanced, but emotionally, and maturely, psychologically, and spiritually, we're just going backwards. What's the missing ingredient? What's the key ingredient to change, to grow, to advance forward? The giving of the Torah is like every Jew in our personal life, we go through all the steps of the Torah. The Torah is a guide. It's a guidebook. It's a map, a roadmap for our life. We all start out like Adam and Chava in the Garden of Eden. When we're babies, we all start out pure and innocent, unself-conscious. They ran around naked in the Garden of Eden. As children, we're completely unself-conscious, guileless, egoless. Not only can't we tell a lie, we are lie detectors. We're so genuine. And that's why babies evoke feelings of love. Even if it's not your own baby, you see a baby, your heart melts. Doesn't matter if they're white, red, yellow, black. Babies are just so genuine, are so real. They're not afraid to be vulnerable. And we just love them. So we all start out that way. And then we tell our first lie, and we are expelled from the Garden of Eden. And then we go through the flood, and we go through all the stages in the Torah. And then we go through the Abraham stage, the circumcision, and Isaac and Jacob, and Egypt, and the Exodus from Egypt, and the giving of the Torah. What's the giving of the Torah in our own personal lives? That's the bar mitzvah, the bat mitzvah. So what happens when a person becomes bar and bat mitzvah? Then suddenly you become obligated to keep the Torah. You become responsible to keep the Torah. Why? What changed? What magical thing happens the night that you turn 13 or you turn 12? You reach puberty. What happens? What changed? And the answer is that a minor, you have some minors who are more brilliant than some 80-year-olds. But they're children. What defines a child and what defines an adult, which comes with puberty, adulthood, children are lacking in das. Das means the ability to focus, the ability to concentrate, the ability to pay attention, the ability to internalize, to personalize, to integrate, to take information. It's not about how brilliant you are. Das, there's Chachma, there's Bina, and there's Das. There's three different brains. You have the right brain, which is the creative brain. Then you have the analytical brain, left brain, primarily in Das. The Das is more of a situation. Das is to be able to make a decision, to turn knowledge into conviction, to turn it into a force in life, which compels you forward, to transform, personalize that knowledge. It's like taking and pickling the knowledge. You know, you have to sit on it. It doesn't just happen. You have to deepen, focus, concentrate, relate, connect. That ability to personally connect with the information, and therefore, consequently, you become responsible for that information. That's what defines maturity, and that's what defines adulthood. A child could be brilliant, but they're children. They don't make a connection. Children, by the way, are very cruel, not because they're cruel by nature, just they don't even realize what they're doing. Children could be so cruel to their classmates. They scar them for life. They don't even realize what they're doing. They don't even mean to do harm. They just don't realize the effect and the impact on what they're saying and what they're doing. So, but when you reach puberty and you have the ability to focus and to concentrate and to connect and to personalize, that's the quality of das. It's not just to know information. There's wisdom. You learn new information. There's understanding. You analyze and you comprehend that information that you've acquired. But then there's das, knowledge, like biblical knowledge. Knowledge means intimate knowledge, knowing it in a very personal way. It's like a difference between the economist who talks about the economy, who never did in his life, except getting his salary, for his professor's salary, versus the person who built a business, who put his life savings on the line, and he built something from scratch. That person, when he talks about money, it's a whole different discussion. He's not talking abstract theory. He's talking real life. It's fleshed out. It's full-blooded. It's real. There's a whole different quality to it. It's pickled. It's drenched in experience and reality. It's experiential reality. It's much more satisfying to hear from someone who has experience, 20, 30 years of experience in his field. You want to hear from anyone who has experience, 20, 30, 40 years in his field, real life experience, versus someone who's just talking abstractly because he's a brilliant mind and he just read a theory and he has some ideas. You can't even compare the two. It's like a difference in a child and a mature adult. A person could be a savant child. There's a lot of professors who are savant, I don't want to say the other word, but they, very brilliant, but they have no das. They have no real life experience, real life understanding, and they can't make any decisions. To be able to make a decision, to be a leader, you have to have das. You have to be decisive. To be decisive, you have to get a feel for it. It's not enough just to know, to understand. You have to really get it into your bones, not just intellectually, but experientially, where the knowledge becomes conviction, and based on that, you make a decision, you go forward, you're decisive. It's a whole different quality to it. As the Talmud says, a person who doesn't have das is impoverished, is intellectually impoverished. What do we consider wealth? Who is wealthy? A person intellectually wealthy, a person who has this maturity, this das, the ability to concentrate, to go deeper. I know this already, but let me apply it to myself. Let me internalize it. Let me integrate it. Let me go deeper into it. Let me pickle it. Let me sit on it. let it soak in, let me absorb it, let me connect with it. And that takes time. There's no shortcuts. And the first step is no distractions. To be able to focus on something, you have to remove all distractions. And a desert is a perfect place for it. When you quarantine, there's no distractions. No restaurants, no theater, no shopping, no traveling. So while society has been galloping forward, the advances in technology is just breathtaking. And everything is quickening because everything is converging now, all the different disciplines and sciences, and it's just mind-boggling. The horizons that are out there, the changes that are happening and will happen, just boggle the mind. But the only one that's been left behind is us, we the people. There hasn't been the advance in human maturity, in emotional, intellectual, and spiritual, and behavioral maturity. If anything, we're sliding backwards, not advancing. So Hashem gave us a little gift. He quarantined us. There are no distractions. Now is a time to pay attention. We were on the treadmill. We were running and running like a chicken without a head, and running. We're running. You don't have a minute to breathe. You don't have a minute in this constant 500 channels with nothing to watch, running from this activity to that activity. You're so busy between the shopping and this and everything. And Hashem pressed the pause button, brought everything to a halt. There's nowhere to run to, no distractions. We're all sitting alone at home. And what an opportunity just to pay attention. Take those things that we know, all that brilliance and all the wisdom that we've learned and we've acquired and we've studied and we've heard and we've listened. And now is the time to personalize it, to own it. This becomes who I am until it becomes conviction and it becomes compelling and it changes me. And that's where real wealth is. We want to mine wealth. You're looking for wealth. This is the wealth. This is the wealth of the soul, the wealth of the spirit. This is the wealth of a life that's truly lived. Because if you don't have that das, then we're like immaturity. Then we're like children. We're just buffeted along from one circumstance to another circumstance, from one external event to another external event. But where's that rich inner life that we all have inside of us, that rich potential, the divine potential that Hashem gave us? Now is the time to cultivate it and to develop it. You know, at the end of the 40 years in the desert, when Moshe addressed the Jewish people right before he passed away, he said one thing. He said, Simu levav. After 40 years of studying Torah, I ask one thing of you. Simu levav. Take it to heart. And that's not something that the teacher can do for us. The only one who can do that for ourselves is ourselves. For us is ourselves. Take it to heart. Personalize it. Internalize it. Integrate it. Connect with it. Relate to it. Make it come alive. And that inner richness, that's how we move forward. That's how we advance. So the world is ready to go. The Rebbe said 30 years ago, the world is ready. The world is ready for Mashiach. The world is ready. Look at the collapse of communism and the information age and the revolutions. And today scientists already see an end to there's so many breakthroughs and conversions. And it's very exciting. We're living in very unusual times. But we, the most important element, the most important ingredient of it all is the human being. We got to get with the program. We got to advance. We got to move forward. So Hashem put a big pause. Send us into the desert. Before the Jewish people could enter into the promised land, to the Holy Land, Hashem says, I'm going to quarantine you for 40 years. Use this time well. Use this time to absorb all the lessons of the Torah. It's not enough just to learn the information, but to truly absorb the Torah until it seeps into your bones, every fiber of your being and every bone in your body, till it becomes your life. And then when you had a generation, an entire generation, 40 years, a new generation that studied Torah without distraction and was able to internalize and integrate it and connect with it. They had that maturity, they had that das, then led by Joshua, they were able to go and conquer Canaan and transform it into Eretz Yisrael, into a holy land, and to settle the land, which they did until the destruction of the first temple, which was close to 1,000 years, 900 years. But first, before they were able to accomplish that, just like you find in our personal life, after the bar mitzvah, we spend years studying in yeshiva. Before you go out into the world, before you get married and you go conquer Israel, conquer Canaan, go out into the world and conquer the land. And first, you have to spend many years absorbing the Torah without any distractions. You have manna from heaven. Your parents are paying your tuition. You don't have to worry about food, lodgings, everything is taken care. No distractions, no worries, no material worries. You can totally focus on the learning, absorbing. And once you've absorbed all that wisdom, then you can go out into the world, you get married, and you pursue your career, and you conquer the world, and you fulfill your divine mission. So it's a preparation, but it's a very essential preparation. And perhaps now, before we enter into the promised land, permanently enter into the promised land, and every last Jew around the world, all 14 million, every last man, woman, and child will enter into the promised land, permanently enter into the promised land, because when Mashiach comes, it's going to be a one-way ticket. And so Hashem is quarantining us, giving us the opportunity to pay attention. Now we can achieve that inner wealth, that inner richness of das, deepening, taking all that information that we already know, thinking about it very deeply, relating to it personally, connecting with it, absorbing it, let it sink in. And once it sinks in and you personalize it and becomes a conviction, and becomes compelling, that evokes your emotion. Now, that propels us forward. That gets us to change. That's how we move forward. That's how we advance. And we are so ready for this step because today we are wearing our souls, our neshamas, and our sleeves. That's why the distractions of our generation had to be so loud, because the neshama is literally at the surface. That in order to drown out the neshama, you have to have the loudest music and the loudest distraction imaginable. But the moment all of that stops, all those distractions are shut down, suddenly we can access our neshama, we can listen, we can hear that inner voice. We can listen to our true selves, not our artificial selves that we constructed, but our inner selves, our neshama, our genuine selves. We can pay attention and learn and make the voice of our neshama our voice. That's who we are. That's what we live for. That's what our life is all about. And we do so joyfully and passionately. We make that connection, conscious connection. That's what das is. Das is a constant a conscious connection. But in order to make this conscious connection, you can't have any distractions. That's why it's called biblical knowledge, just like intimacy. In order to be intimate, you have to be able to focus 100%. You can't focus 99.9%. To be intimate, you have to be totally present. And we have that ability. Everyone who reaches puberty has that ability, that physical ability to totally concentrate 100%, which is that spiritual ability that we have to focus and to totally concentrate without any extraneous distraction. Be totally present. Now it's not easy because by nature our mind wanders, and it's not everyone has the Sitzfleisch, not everyone has the constitution to sit and to focus and to connect and to listen. We don't listen to others, and it's very hard for us to listen to ourselves even. Our mind is constantly chattering. So the ability to concentrate is to silence and quiet yourself from inner distractions and outer distractions. You close the door, you lock yourself up in a room, and no distractions. You're just focusing and concentrating and connecting. And Hashem helped us out here. He knows how challenging it is for us with all the loud noise and constant distractions. Today, more than ever before in history, there's no end to it. Between the restaurants and the shopping and the theater and the travel, who has a minute to breathe? You don't have a second to think, a second to really connect. So Hashem removed all distractions. Okay. I'm giving you a few weeks, now 8 weeks. Hopefully it's not going to be much longer because everyone is already sitting on shpilkas. But use this time, utilize this time to achieve this das, take it to heart, pay attention. Not learn new information, but pay attention. All this brilliance that you learned and you acquired, pay attention. And turn it into riches. You have all the ingredients, you have all the material, but in order to lead a rich life, in order to have a rich inner life, we all go through life. But one person takes 1% out of life. Another person takes 10% out of life. And there's that rare individual, that rich individual who lives life to the fullest. Every day, every moment, they're living 100%. They're totally present. Whatever they're doing 100%. Shavuos is the yard side of the Baal Shem Tov. This is the one thing the Baal Shem Tov taught us, Hasidus teaches us. That you never judge a person, you never evaluate, because the real criteria is, it doesn't matter how brilliant you are, how talented you are. That's not how you look at a person. It's not how you should look at yourself. The one thing we should ask of ourselves is, whoever I am or whatever I do it 100%. Baal Shem Tov said. That's why he loved the simple Jew. Because the simple Jew, whatever they do is 100%. They're sincere. There's no guile. There's nothing affected. There's nothing artificial. You can have a brilliant person, but he's not giving it his all. He's into it 90%. No, that won't cut it. Versus the simple Jew, he's doing 100% the best that he can. He's pouring his whole being into the mitzvah. He's doing this kindness with his whole heart and soul. And that to Hashem is more precious than all the brilliance and all the mystical intents if your heart is not into it, if you're not doing it 100%. That's all Hashem is asking of each and every one of us. Whatever you do 100%. And that's where the richness lies. That's when life becomes rich, rewarding, satisfying, joyful, passionate, exciting, something to look forward to. The criteria is das. That's the key ingredient. That's the key. It unlocks everything. Focus, pay attention, concentrate, conscious connection, personalize, relate, internalize. And you can only do that when you don't have any distractions. Then you can go deeper into it and connect with it. And what a golden opportunity Hashem gave us. The last moments of exile, Hashem is giving us such a golden opportunity. Now is the time. the last chance, the last opportunity. I'm giving you this gift. Every one of us was given a sabbatical. Yeah, I mean, even if you're working from home, but Hashem is giving us a gift. Take this time. Take this opportunity. Just like the Jews in the desert. That's why a whole Torah portion is called Bamidbar. The whole book is called Bamidbar in a positive sense. Bamidbar is a place, there's no distractions. You're quarantined, you're isolated, there's no one there, there's nothing there. You're alone. That's a gift. Yes, we're social creatures by nature. We're not meant to be alone. But it's a moment. It's just a brief moment. But utilize this brief moment. The Jews in the desert were also just for a brief moment in history. But this is what prepared them. This was the best preparation that prepared them for their task, for their mission to be able to enter into the promised land and to conquer the land. Because they had that centeredness. They were centered, they were focused, and therefore they were able to go forward. So before Mashiach comes, Hashem is giving us this opportunity to be centered, to be focused, to be connected, and then we can advance. Then we can move forward in our own personal life, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, and it also changes our behavior. It improves our behavior. Because when you make the link between, Das is the link between ideas and emotions and feelings and the heart. Because otherwise, we have what we call, it's called a, when you have a traffic, very heavy traffic, right? What do you call it?
Bumper to bumper?
Bottleneck.
Bottleneck? Why is it called bottleneck? Very good. Why is it called bottleneck? When you're going to the Hamptons, before Corona, it was called bottleneck. Now I'm sure the roads are empty. Because a neck is very narrow. And the neck is what connects the brain to the torso, to the heart. And there's a lot of traffic. Somehow, it doesn't reach from the brain, it doesn't reach to the heart. There's too much traffic. In other words, if we were the way we ought to be, we know we could be, the way we know we should be, and the way we would like to be, if we lived up to our information, to our knowledge and information, the world would be a Garden of Eden. We would be so much better than we are, so much better people than we are. The problem is we know so much, and we intend to do a lot, and we think to ourselves, yes, I ought to be this way, and I ought to change, and I ought, but it doesn't trickle down. Something gets lost on that highway, and that little one-lane road called the neck. The idea doesn't percolate, doesn't reach the heart. And it's the heart that changes us. When you feel, then that motivates you to change. Just knowing something is not strong enough, doesn't compel you to actually change. So to actually make a dent in our life, to actually make a change in our lives, the idea has to trickle down and reach the heart. When the heart becomes on fire, then it becomes compelling, and that gets you to change. So what's the key that connects the brain to the torso? That's the limbic brain on the back of us, which is the brain of Das. That's the brain of knowledge. That's the connection. When you're able to take the idea and it turns into experiential, it turns into conviction, the idea becomes personalized. It's more than just an idea. You start feeling it. You start relating to it. You start consciously connecting with it. You integrate it. You internalize it. It becomes part of you, part of your consciousness, part of your being, personality and character. Then it flows to the heart. And then that flows to your arms and your legs and your behavior. That's what compels change. So Hashem is saying the world is ready for Mashiach. The universe is ready. Everything is ready. It's been ready for 29 years already. Since the Rabbi said, that the world is ready. And we're not going forward. If anything, we're going backwards. Hashem says it's time for us to catch up. See, he's giving us a little time. Here, I'm giving you a gift. I'm putting you in the desert. I'm quarantining you. This is the time. Pay attention, focus, concentrate. This is what will lead us to that inner richness that will enable us and compel us to go forward, to advance, to improve, to enhance, to change. That we should become a living Torah, not just ideas, but the Torah comes alive for us. Shavuot is not just about eating blintzes. It becomes the most joyful day of the year. This is the day we're receiving the Torah. This is the day that changed the world forever. When Torah comes alive, our Yiddishkeit comes alive, our spirituality comes alive, our godly connection comes alive. So this is the positive aspect of the desert. And so much so that becomes the name of the whole book and the name of the Torah portion. Anyway, it's just an idea. Obviously, you don't have to agree with anything that was said. If anyone wants to, if you have your idea, please feel free to share it.
I have a question.
Sure.
I have a question, Rabbi.
Yeah, Hashi, yeah, go ahead.
If we didn't have the episode of the spies, if that whole
Yes.
thing occur, we would have. How would we have the 40 years then to get to get purified, to concentrate? We were to get that humility back. If we didn't have the 40 years there was no spies. Let's say the spies did the right thing.
Okay, that's a very good question. So firstly, when the spies came back on Tisha B'Av, this was already a year and 4 months after they left Egypt. So they were already in the desert for a year and 4 months. So they had time they were quarantined already for a year and 4 months. So that would have been enough. Also, there is another aspect. You see, there are times where you can fast forward this whole process of getting to the depth of something. And that is, if you notice, when you deeply care about something, when the subject matter is something that you deeply care about, you're able to focus wondrously. You put geniuses to shame. When something really matters to you, if it's a subject that really, really matters to you, when people are discussing their own finances, their own money, their own business, where they put their life savings on the line, simple people come up with ingenious ideas. Einstein would be proud of them. Not because they're Einstein, because it deeply matters to them. And when something deeply matters to you, you're able to plumb the depth. You're able to access, you're able to do things, and you're able to fast forward this whole process. You know, when a person is under intense pressure, you're able to do heroic things. You know, mothers were able to lift up a car to save their child who was trapped under the car. Like Hercules, this Herculean, where did she get this Herculean ability, effort? But when something matters very much to you, that matters very deeply, people who are stuck and had to free themselves from a fire, escaping a fire, and they were able to get out of bars that later on they went back. It was impossible. They couldn't fit through, and they got through. When you're under tremendous pressure, when you're fighting for your life, or you're suddenly able to do things, extraordinary things that ordinarily you can't do. So when you care deeply about certain things, by the way, we all know, for example, Churchill, one of the best speakers ever. But if you ever go to the hearings in New York City about the rent control hearings, the tenant speaking, they would put Churchill to shame, when they speak so eloquently and passionately about raising the rent, not raising the rent. You're talking about the something that matters to them, something that matters to a person very deeply, and suddenly they become eloquent and passionate, and they communicate so clearly and brilliant and amazing. So we have the ability to access this das. We have the ability to accelerate this, to be able to access that inner richness when you care very deeply about it. And that's why Hashem is upset, because yes, maybe ordinarily we would need 40 years. But if they would really take it to heart, if they would really pay attention and really care about the Torah that they've received over a year ago, when the story of the spies happened, they would be able to access that richness. They would be able to have the wisdom to do the right thing and come to the right decisions and right conclusions. So we do have that ability to fast forward and facilitate it. And maybe we don't have to sit much longer in this quarantine. Hashem gave us this opportunity. Let's utilize it and utilize it to the maximum and appreciate it. And then we can fast forward this whole process, facilitate this whole process. We don't have to sit quarantined until they find the vaccine, who knows how long that will take, So it's a quality thing. It's not necessarily a quantity thing. Yes, you need time. You need time to pickle a pickle. You can't, there's certain things, there's nothing instant in life. Even instant coffee is not instant. It takes time. When you eat, you have to eat. You have to digest the food. If you eat very quickly, if you don't, which is like you don't have das, you just swallow the food, it's counterproductive. It's just going to give you a stomachache. Your body can't internalize the food. There's some things in life that can't be rushed. Das is the idea, don't rush. Stop, slow down. Slow down. There's some things in life you just can't rush. Even though we live in a mad rush, everything is a mad rush. Until the corona, everything was in such a mad rush. Hashem slowed everything down. Stop. Some things in life you just can't rush. You can't. When you eat, you can't rush eating. That's not called eating. You're not going to get anything out of that eating. To eat properly, you have to slow down. Same thing is spiritually and mentally and emotionally and psychologically. Some things just can't be rushed. You have to slowly close your eyes, close the door, focus, pay attention, concentrate, no distractions. There's no rushing it. So yes, das takes time. To pickle something takes time. To absorb an idea takes time. Go ahead. Shani, you were saying?
So I'm thinking,
Rabbi, it's the idea that they needed.
I'm thinking, Rabbi, that.
I'm sorry.
I'm thinking, Rabbi, that we're all a little bit Shani, like Moshe on Har Sinai. Yeah, I'm thinking that we're all like Moshe on Har Sinai a little bit now, because he quarantined and then Hashem came to him. Maybe that's the lesson, that while we're separated and on our own, Hashem comes to us based on our level, and we can't do it together because everybody's on different levels. So just as Moshe had to separate himself from the community, go up on Har Sinai, and Hashem came and gave him the Torah, maybe we all, just like for Shavuos coming, can receive the Torah on the level that we are. And maybe, it gives us a chance to connect and have Hashem greet us, just like Har Sinai. All of us on Har Sinai's in our own little worlds.
I love it. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thought. Thank you.
I also have a point that
so even
we were
though
so Egyptian-like when we left
the process
Egypt,
can't be rushed,
that to go into an environment like the desert, you say, what? Wait, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Has she? Yeah, now I could. Yeah. Yes.
Can you?
Has she? Yeah, we hear you.
Has she? Egyptian, like when we left Egypt, we needed that time to take away everything. It was like you're saying, why were we in an environment like the desert the desert cleansed us in a sense, like going to a mikvah. We were like so tainted and so close to being like the Egyptians and so close not to getting out of Mitzrayim. You needed that environment of a desert to strip everything away so you could be humble enough to receive the Torah. And that's why it took so long, instead of just saying, oh, here's the Torah.
Okay, very good point.
My 2 cents.
And what this quarantine taught us also is it also taught us what's really necessary, what's really essential and what's not essential. We got distracted with so many things that we thought that, we can't live without it. And then you realize what's essential, what's not essential. It's very clarifying. It's very enlightening to learn what really matters in life and what you really need in life and what is extra baggage, excessive baggage that doesn't really matter. It's no big deal. And so this is a very helpful time in many levels and all different levels. This is a gift that Hashem is giving us, really. We should look at it that way. Not in a negative way, but it's an opportunity. It's a big gift that Hashem has given us. And most people are never given this gift. Professors take a sabbatical. They look forward just Hashem gave us all a sabbatical. And it's a very, very healthy, it's a gift that we would never have gotten on our own. We would never do this on our own. And it was forced on us, but it's really a very special opportunity if we utilize it properly and realize that it's the hand of Hashem. It's not a negative thing. It's all, Hashem is good. Everything Hashem does is good. This is for our good. If we utilize it, we have to have the das. And that's what Hashem says at the end of the 40 years. Moshe says, now you have the knowledge. After 40 years, after you've been able to focus for 40 years without any distractions, now, 40 years later, now you have the proper frame of mind, you have the proper awareness, the proper connection, conscious connection. Now you're ready to fulfill your divine mission and conquer the promised land. So it's all leading up to that das, have that inner richness. Hashem gave us the key to unlock all that inner treasures, which makes our life so much richer and so much more meaningful and rewarding and exciting and something we look forward to each and every day and for the rest of our life. So we're going to walk out of this much richer. Yes, it's a tragedy, but it's like a Chernobyl moment. Chernobyl was a big tragedy, but it opened up. It led to the collapse of communism. It led to a much richer. The after Chernobyl was much better reality than before. So this is like for the world. This is like a Chernobyl moment. But really, Hashem, it's really for our good. This is really we're not just going back to the way it used to be. We're gonna walk out of this. We have the potential to walk out of it with much ennobled, enriched, and we learn to access all that inner richness and to have that ability of das, that ability to focus on what's real, to pay attention, not just to learn and study, but to take all that we learn and take all that we study and to truly pay attention, which is really what we do when we daven. When you daven every day, you're not learning new information. When you study Torah each and every day, the mitzvah is to learn something new. That's the nature of the mind. The mind needs to be fed new information. You're constantly curious. You constantly want to learn something new, something fresh, and the fresh insight. But davening, prayer, it's so predictable. It's the exact same davening I did yesterday and the day before, and I'm going to do thousands of times, and I did thousands of times, and tens of thousands of times, the same words. I know exactly what I'm going to say next. Davening is not about learning something new. Davening is all about das. Davening is a time to focus. You close your eyes. I'm not learning new information, but you're concentrating. You're paying attention. You're internalizing. Where all that information comes alive. All information is into a principle, into something compelling, something that I internalize, something that I do joyfully and embrace joyfully and passionately, and I absorb and compels me to advance, to go forward, to change, and prepares me for the rest of the day. That's why you start the day with davening. Because first you have to focus, first you have to center yourself, first you have to concentrate. Once you make that conscious connection, and the rest of the day, it's a different day. A day that you daven, you can't compare a day that you daven to a day that you didn't daven. This is a day where you're inspired, where you're connected, where you're up. It's a different day. The whole day is different. So before the Jews can go into the promised land, first they had to focus. They had to have that experience of das, to turn all that Torah into, make it experiential and personal. Now you can go forward. So Hashem has given us a golden opportunity on a silver platter. So we're grateful, we're thankful. We're in the desert, Bamidbar, but in the positive sense of being in the desert, of being able to focus and concentrate, enjoy the sabbatical, make the most of it, because it's about to come to an end. It's not going to last much longer. And the Shabbos before the giving of the Torah, we read the last chapter, the Ethics of Our Fathers, chapter 6. And next Tuesday, we're going to have a class before the giving of the Torah, discuss the Torah, the revelation, the day that changed the world. Moshe was the 7th generation. And in the comparison to our generation, we are also the 7th generation. So we'll discuss it then. So until then, I want to wish everyone a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Stay safe. Good Shabbos. Stay safe.
Shabbos.
Everybody.
Shalom. Shalom. It's always a pleasure to see you all.
And regards, Shani, to Sackett Lake.
Yes.
I love. My heart is there. My heart is there.
It's as beautiful as ever.
I'm swimming.
Nice to see you all. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Shalom. Thank you.
Shabbos, Ariella. Best regards.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos.